Hello and welcome to the Quiet Corner. This is a knitting and hand spinning podcast where I share about my love for all things fiber from my little corner of the world in Ottawa, Canada. My name is Vanessa, and other than on this channel, you can find me on Instagram at SeaSaltandStone. A huge welcome to new and returning viewers. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me here. I'm really looking forward to getting back to my traditional podcast format today. I finally kind of found a half decent setup in my new home. Although I'm still kind of playing around with things because the lighting is so different in our new house. But yeah, just excited to spend some time with you today talking about fiber. I do have quite a few, I think, exciting things to share with you. I've been a bit more productive in my third trimester of pregnancy than I was in my first and second. I think just because, well, first trimester I was so tired. Second trimester we moved house, and so that was chaotic. But my fiber mojo has come back a bit for sure in the third trimester, so that's good. And yeah, I wanted to hop on here one last time before baby arrives, just because at that point I'll probably take a bit of a longer break from podcasting, but I am hoping that during my maternity leave, I'm taking a full year, I'm hoping I'll still be able to find ways to podcast. It might just be a different format, maybe a little shorter, who knows. Anyhow, let's get started. I've got a nice hot cup of Assam tea with me here. I hope you have something warm and cozy to drink. And let's get started with FOs. So, what have I been up to? Over the Christmas holidays, I finally cast off my hand-spun socks. So these have been worn and washed several times now, so they're definitely not looking as fresh as they could be. But this is one of the finished socks. Hopefully you can see. And this is with my hand-spun Shetland wool, which was a 3-ply fingering weight. And I just kind of made up a little pattern for myself. I wanted to play around with a little bit of texture. And so, yeah, I have just a panel in the front. It's probably going to be difficult to see it, but there is this panel in the front of the sock. I'll show you, not on the blocker as well. Sorry, you're gonna have to excuse me. I've been very congested, and it's just a pregnancy thing. I'm not sick, but I'm probably gonna sound like I'm sick throughout this whole podcast. Yeah, so there's this panel down the front that's just broken seed stitch, and then the back is regular stockinette, just my usual vanilla sock recipe is what I used for kind of toe, heel, and cuff. And I love the way that they turned out. And because I knit these on a oh gosh, what was it? I think it's my one, I'll double check for you here. My Chiagu 2mm US size 0 circular needles. So really super tight gauge, which I did because my handspun turned out to be so thin, so fine, that I was worried my my typical 2.25mm US size 1s, these guys, I was worried that these would be not a tight enough gauge to give me the durability that I was looking for. And so in terms of transparency, when I hold these up to the light, like I can still see light through them, but the gauge appears to be fairly tight to me. So I'm hoping that these hold up. They've already got lots of wear on them. Oh, and I also did them as shorties because I got about this far on the leg and I lost patience with the broken seed stitch. I actually found it quite difficult to do broken seed stitch with this fine, with such a fine yarn, and also the color of it. So it was so hard to see kind of when I was supposed to be starting a row with a purl or a knit. And there was one point where I made a mistake in a few rows and had to rip back, and then it was just kind of, it was becoming exhausting and like hard on my eyes because oftentimes I'm knitting in the evenings. So it's that much harder to kind of see what you're doing when you're working with such a fine fabric. Anyhow, those are my finished handspun socks. My first ever handspun socks, so super exciting, and I'm totally hooked on handspun socks now. Yeah, there's just something so exciting about the whole process for me. I think just because knitting, it's knitting with handspun, but then handspun sock yarn to me is, there's just that little bit of like technicality to it that I like to incorporate, I guess. You know, trying to get a really durable yarn and experimenting with different techniques for sock yarn. You know, paying attention to my my spinner's control card, all of that stuff. But anyway, that's like for the spinning segment, really. Yeah, so that's my first FO that I wanted to show you. The second finished object that I have, and I think I talked about this in my last podcast, but I had finished a few skeins of this DK to worsted weight handspun merino Corriedale. It was one of those like free spins, not a technical spin at all, just playing around with roll legs that I blended. And I decided to knit up I knew I wanted to do like a baby garment of some sort. And I wonder if I have, let me just get out my logbook here. Yes, so I decided to knit the baby kimono. It's a pattern by Betty Knitter. I knit the largest size on my 4mm US 6 circulars, 22-inch circulars. And this is the finished object. Hopefully you can see that okay. But I really love, I love the shape with this sweater and the design, the way that you have basically 2 flaps. So there's one on the inside that goes all the way over and it ties to this side. And then there's the front flap that you button. And I just put these 2 little wooden toggle buttons on it. And I think it turned out super cute. And I just loved every moment of knitting with this handspun and kind of seeing the different color shifts happening. I'll give you a close-up of the fabric as well. Hopefully you can see that okay. One thing that I did do with this garment was I alternated skeins of my handspun because it was such an inconsistent spin because I was just doing it, not thinking it through much at all. Like I don't think I looked at my control card once. Which is what you just gotta do sometimes. Yeah, so I did alternate skeins just because I wanted to improve consistency in terms of the color variations and also the weight of the yarn. Because it's a garment in particular, you know, I didn't want to end up with one sleeve that was way super smaller than the other sleeve or something like that because I used a separate skein on one side than the other. That was what I was kind of trying to avoid, and it I think it worked out really well. And there's that's what the back looks like. I kind of really like the back because you can see, if I hold it like this, you can just see how the stockinette stitch flows. And you see all the different striations of color. So I'm hoping that this will fit baby around the 6-month mark, which would bring us to fall and winter of next year, but we'll see. So that is my other finished object. All right, works in progress. I have 2 works in progress right now. For knitting. Let me see. Which one will I show you first? Yes. So another skein that I spun up from the exact same blend that I did for the baby kimono. Was a fingering weight skein. I'll show you here the yarn in the ball. And this is actually just a 2-ply. It's a roll leg preparation spun worsted. So there is a bit of durability added with the worsted style spinning. And I thought that I would try that as a sock yarn, and it's only a 2-ply. So this is not at all a traditional sock yarn. Nothing like the last pair of handspun socks that I spun up, because I just, out of curiosity, want to see what happens when I use different handspun yarns, how they hold up, if my kind of common denominator is using a really tight gauge. What can I kind of get away with, I guess, is the question. So I cast on some vanilla socks with this, and I just have the toes so far. I think they're turning out really cute. And with the tighter gauge on the US size 0, 2 millimeters, I think it's 2, yeah, 2 millimeters. Again, it's a decently tight gauge, so I'm just gonna experiment with that. It feels fairly durable to me, but we'll just have to see. But yeah, I couldn't help but cast on some vanilla socks after the broken seed stitch socks. I can't go very long without having vanilla socks on the needles. It's just like, it's my go-to comfort knitting, and something that I will easily be able to knit on often, because it's also TV knitting for me, which, yeah, I need that kind of mindless knitting on the go at all times, preferably speaking. So that's a work in progress, another kind of handspun sock experiment. Of course, I'll let you know how it goes. And then my only other work in progress for knitting right now is a stash buster project. And I am knitting the Fraser fur hat, which is a colorwork hat by Kirsten Kapur Designs. This is a paid for pattern, and I purchased it because it's a super cute colorwork design that I thought I could easily kind of reuse and would make a great gift knit too. But I was also I was looking for something. I was craving color work, first of all. Still am. And just wanted to start using up some of my scraps from the last couple of sweater garments that I knit. So I'm using my Juniper Moon Farm Patagonia in the violet colorway, and the Cascade 220 in their light gray. And I just have kind of I'm about halfway through the color work portion. Don't know if you can see that very well. Hopefully it's showing up okay. It's a bit bubbly at the moment because of course it's not blocked. But I have tried it on the cap of my head and I think it is going to fit me okay. I also took a bit of a risk with it because the violet is actually a DK weight and the cascade is a worsted weight. But when I compare the two, they're not too dissimilar. I don't know if I can give you a view of that or not. Maybe. I thought they're not too dissimilar. I'll just give it a shot. And the color work seems to be popping okay. It may not be perfect, we'll have to see once it's blocked out. If having the gray be a slightly heavier weight means that it will kind of overshadow the violet. But like I said, I'm just kind of doing it to bust some stash and have some fun with color work. So that's where I'm at with that. So next up is spinning. And this isn't the most exciting spin ever. This is a scrap spin, so I mean, it might be exciting for some people who love bright colors, but these colors don't excite me, which is why well, the blend of these colors doesn't really do it for me. But I just really wanted to use up this leftover Ashford Corriedale that I had. And I thought, again, I can try a different kind of prep for a sock yarn and see what happens. And what I did was, I have these bumps of the fiber. They kind of remind me of Easter, like Easter colors, Easter egg. So the one thing I do love about this spin is I love spinning Corriedale. I think that so far it's one of my favorite fibers to spin. So I am, what I did with this fiber prep was, it was all in a commercial comb top preparation. I blended the colors on my blending board, but not to make roll eggs, just to make basically a smooth bat that I took the entire, all the layers of fiber off together, so I didn't create roll eggs. It's kind of a way to make a smooth bat on a blending board, so that your fibers are still mostly aligned. So it's not going to be the same as spinning with like straight from commercial comb top or traditional authentic hand combed top. It's kind of like making faux top. You're just getting a bit of like color variation and blending. So what I did was made those smooth bats with the different colors that I had left over the different scraps. And then I just peeled off strips from the bat. And if I can unravel this for you. And then once I have a strip off the bat, I just would pre-draft it out into this longer strip. So it's as you can see, like it mimics a bit of a comb top preparation. So I thought I would give this a shot, spinning it worsted. Because I think I'll still get a fair amount of durability that way, like a smooth, durable yarn. And again, knit my handspun socks on a really tight gauge. So I'm doing 3 separate bobbins of a thread weight so that I can do a 3-ply sock yarn with this in the end. This is 1 bobbin. And my hope, or my kind of thinking around this was, can I take colors that I don't really love together, and the more blending of them that I do, will I end up with kind of a more subtle, heathered looking yarn that I actually don't mind as much? That was kind of my thinking in terms of, like, I guess you could call it not color management, but my color strategy. So I'm excited to see what happens when this is a 3-ply. Whether it will just have a more blended, subtle effect compared to how it is in its more raw form. So yeah, more experiments. And I just have like, I think 3 more little nests to go on my 3rd bobbin for that. I'm hoping to finish that up this weekend so that I can start plying. I love plying. I don't know, I'd be curious to know if you have a preference. Like, do you love the process of drafting and spinning your singles more than plying, or vice versa, or do you love them equally? Comment down below if you have a preference. I'm just curious, because I personally, like, I love drafting and spinning my singles, but my favorite is plying. I think I have to say that hands down, my favorite is plying. There's just something about seeing the yarn come together, and also that the process of plying is a bit more mindless to me in a way. Like, I just get to kind of hold the yarn, let the movement and the wheel do its work, and it just all is coming together on the bobbin, and you get this, like, the first glimpse of what your finished yarn will be. And that's like my favorite part to get to every time. So yeah, let me know what your preference is. All right, I've got a couple of exciting things to share with you for stash acquisitions and plans. So the first one is, I alluded to this earlier. I caught a colorwork bug over the holidays. I just couldn't stop thinking about colorwork, and in particular, colorwork socks. So I did a bunch of pattern hunting. I found a bunch of great free colorwork sock patterns, and if I have time, I'll try to link those down below, or at least a couple of them that I've kind of queued up. But another pattern set that I really, really love is the one by, I think her name is P for Chen. Don't quote me on that, but I'll link her pattern series down below as well. She's got like a pattern booklet where I think there's like at least 5 different colorwork sock patterns, and I follow her on Instagram, and she also has been putting on these workshops for doing colorwork socks, which is great. So anyway, I kind of have it in my mind that maybe colorwork socks would be a fun thing to explore while I'm on mat leave, just because, you know, I'm gonna want the vanilla socks probably most of the time when I'm sleep deprived and can't really think of doing anything more than that. But then I also thought I could also get a bit bored, and maybe I'll need something that's not too intense, like learning how to knit a new garment pattern, something that still has the comfort of knitting socks for me, but just that touch of, you know, what's the word? Like a touch of intrigue. And I thought colorwork socks could be that for me. So I went ahead and I purchased, because I saw that a lot of the colorwork sock patterns I was looking at called for yarns like Roma-Phenol jumper weight, which I think are more so like woolen spun type yarns, not like your traditional really tightly spun 3 or 4 ply worsted sock yarn. So I was intrigued by that, and I purchased some Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, thinking that I could do some colorwork socks with this. So the colors I went with, I have for the main color, I guess, I'm going to use, it's 202 Stone. It's just this off-white creamy base. It's just beautiful. And this one is called 82 Mix. I don't know if the color will pick up properly on screen, but I am so in love with this color. It's like a deep heathered emerald green. That is how I would describe this. A deep heathered emerald green, and it's just stunning. Like, it has so much depth to it. So I thought these two together would be really cute colorwork socks. So I'm planning to cast these on once I'm finished with my hat. Who knows when that will happen, because I'm about a week and a half, potentially only a week out from having a baby. Oh, you gotta have a little bit of wishful thinking in life, right? So that was one of my latest acquisitions and plans. Another exciting thing to share with you, my brother and sister-in-law, for Christmas, they got me a yarn subscription for 3 months of yarn boxes, which is just like extremely thoughtful and yeah, just so thoughtful, because I think obviously they realize that this is what I love to do and what I love to spend my my money on. So I really appreciated it, and it's a yarn subscription from Wool Interrupted. This is their logo. Handcrafted, indie dyed, curated perfection. And they are Canadian based, I do believe. I wonder if I can confirm that. Yeah, they're based in Ontario. So I will link this down below. But with the January yarn box, they just send it, and then for February and March you get to actually select your colors out of 3 different colorways, and it's a 2 skein per box for the particular subscription that they got me. And they send this lovely inspiration photo, so to show you the inspiration they used for their yarn for each box. And this is the inspiration photo for the January box. And here are the 2 skeins. And they're just gorgeous. Like I love everything about these colorways. Now this is a fingering weight 80/20 merino nylon base. It says hand dyed by Emma. It is a fingering weight, 100 grams, 437 yards in each skein, and the colorway is Ellesmere Island Special. It is a superwash yarn, which, as you know, I don't work with often. But I would really like to take advantage of that to just make some garments that superwash is like lends itself particularly well to. So I'm thinking this could be a great next to skin shawl. This could also be a great pair of socks, whether I did color work or like a pair for Dan and a pair for myself. I could definitely see that being a beautiful option as well. So yeah, we'll just have to see what I decide to do with these. And I'm excited for the next box to show up as well. I selected a color that's like kind of like a frosty, very light frosty blue color. And of course I could also wait until I have all 6 skeins from the boxes and maybe see if any of them do go together, and then I could potentially also knit a garment from that. So that is, I think, the only other, that's the only other acquisition I have in terms of knitting. Still, once I get the sock yarn off my wheel, I am planning to start on my fleece that I'm slowly preparing into hand carded row legs. And I think my plan for that is probably to do like a 2-ply jumper weight that would be very similar. In fact, I'm thinking of using this Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight as my inspiration. And you know, there's so much I could do with it. I could dye the yarn once I finish spinning it. I could use it as is, as a base for a sweater, and then just have purchase or spin a separate skein for a colourwork yoke. I could do a really beautiful hap shawl. There's so many options. So that's kind of the plan for my fleece. All right, last but not least, I'm also going to incorporate a little weaving segment into my traditional podcast format whenever possible, because I don't want these podcasts to become like 3 hours long. But for Christmas, it was kind of like Christmas and birthday combo gift for myself. Was an Ashford rigid heddle loom with a stand. I got the 32-inch. It comes with, I think it's the 7.5 dents per inch reed, and I also purchased a 12.5 dents per inch. And let me just get out my cotton here. So when I purchased the loom, also got some 8/4 brassard cotton, and I'll show you the first 3 spools. I think they're called cones. They're called cones. These were the first 3 cones that I purchased. And it's, I believe the 8/4 cotton is an unmercerized cotton, which is supposed to be better for if you're doing something like a tea towel, which is exactly what I want to do as my first kind of foray into weaving. And so I got those 3 colors and basically just made up my own pattern for tea towels, and that was my first weaving project over the holidays. So these have been used and washed, so they're not looking their most beautiful. But you'll get the sense. This is the first one. It turned out a little shorter than I had planned, but that's okay, it's still functional. And I'll show you the second one. This one is a bit longer. And there are a couple little ends that have come loose that I need to trim up like that one there. But yeah, I'm really happy with how they turned out. They work well. I do think they need to be used and washed a few times before they're like the full capacity of their absorbency kicks in. But I've just been loving the whole process of weaving, especially actually sitting down and, you know, weaving back and forth with weft. Warping the loom is like, obviously, yeah, you have to set aside like hours to do that part, and that's a bit of a challenge. But then once that's done, it's amazing how quickly you can just like create fabric on a loom. It's amazing. So I did also purchase a few more colors recently, and I'm sorry I don't have the tags with me, but I got 3 more cones. These are the cones. To make another set of tea towels. And of course I want to get into weaving with wool eventually, but I just thought I'm very practical. I like everything that I make to have like a very clear purpose. I want it to be useful. And yeah, in this case, I don't know what I need in terms of a woven garment or a scarf yet. I haven't given it enough thought, but I knew that tea towels is something I'll always be able to use. So with the last 3 colors that I purchased, I did warp up my loom a long enough warp for at least 3 tea towels, and I got it all set up and ready to go with the hope that I could just get it set up and not actually weave on it a whole lot, because I think it's going to be one of those really nice kind of mindless activities that I can do potentially when baby is here. Again, could be wishful thinking, which is totally fine. And I'm not putting any sort of expectation on myself to be making things when baby does arrive. But I have been trying to kind of set up as many projects as I can that are just kind of will be mindless enough that if I feel like knitting or weaving or spinning, that there will just be things ready to go. So that's the plan. And one other thing I will share with you, a little technique, I guess. I did some research because I don't have a sewing machine, and a lot of people, what they will do with their hand woven tea towels is they'll finish the fabric, you know, cut the fabric off the loom, and then they'll do like a proper hem on a sewing machine. But because I don't have a sewing machine, I need something that is going to secure my hand towels, but I didn't want to have this super long fringe either that's just gonna get like gross and manky because it's a tea towel. So what I've been doing is, as soon as I start weaving, a towel, once I'm like a couple inches in, I immediately go and do a hem stitch. At least this is what I did for these tea towels. I shouldn't say that it's like my, my strategy, because I've only done it once, but it did work. So I'll immediately go and do a hem stitch, and then I weave, and when I get to the length I want for the towel, then I hem stitch again, and then I leave some of the warp basically without weft, and then I would start the second towel without cutting anything off the warp, and I would do the same thing, weave for a couple of inches and then hem stitch. And so then that way, when I finish all 3 tea towels, or 2 tea towels in this case, as I'm rolling it off the beam, I just have to cut where I want to cut after the hem stitch, and then they're done. Like, I don't have to hem them with a sewing machine or anything. And I can literally just, I threw these in the wash right away. They came out fine. And what I did was, the one thing I did find in my research was that weavers recommended, if you are going to do a fringe with a tea towel, just make it really short so that it doesn't get gross and manky. So I just did this really short, like under an inch fringe after the hem stitching. So yeah, that's how that turned out, and I'm quite happy with it. So I think that's all I have to share with you today. I really hope you've enjoyed this time with me. I've really enjoyed just having some dedicated time to chat fiber. It's been so long, and I hope to see you again as soon as possible. I hope you're well, I hope you're safe, and I'm just sending all my love your way as we continue in this time of isolating, and yeah, hope you're keeping your hands busy, and I look forward to the next time we get to sit down together and talk about fiber. So be well, stay safe, take care, and until next time, I hope you have just a very creative, comforting winter season. Bye.